Hi everyone, joining you from outside because it is a really beautiful day and I know the lighting is kind of wonky, but hopefully you can see my face. Today I wanted to talk about a story that has been in the news the past couple of days, and it is concerning Pfizer and their drug Enbrel. So they developed Enbrel about 3 years ago, if you haven't read about it, and they Washington Post published a story that Pfizer basically covered up this information that Enbrel could also reduce Alzheimer's disease. So there's definitely an uproar in the Alzheimer's community about this, and why did Pfizer keep this information from us? So that is what I'll be talking about today. But first, if you have not seen my channel, welcome to Joy in Dementia. My name is Laura Smothers Chu, and I am the CEO and founder of Befriended Heart, where I help daughters navigate their parents' dementia. So, getting into Enbrel and that whole story, I need to tell you why I am not just waiting for a cure or a miracle drug. I will tell you that if there's a cure, then that's amazing, and I am absolutely on board for it, for dementia in general, or Alzheimer's, or any one of the types of dementia that people are afflicted with these days. But I think it's really important that we don't just sit back and wait for a cure, because honestly, I'm in DC, I'm in the nation's capital, and so I have access to really cutting edge research and hearing these researchers and scientists talk about their studies on dementia. And I can tell you, nobody knows anything. And I know that that's like really difficult information to understand, but I think it helps, and I'll get to why that helps in a second. So, it can be very discouraging that we don't know what causes dementia. We don't know how to cure it. We don't necessarily even know how to treat it, right? Like, we have medications out there that are available, mostly Aricept and Namenda, which help like 30% of people with dementia, but it doesn't help the other 60%, right? So there's no like all out solution to this issue. And our culture hates uncertainty, right? Like, we're used to quick fixes and pills we can take, and then, if I have a headache, I just take Excedrin and my headache is gone like that, right? So we're really used to quick solutions. And so when we have something like this in our society that, we don't know what causes it, we don't know how to fix it, it drives us crazy. And since Alzheimer's is the most common form of dementia in the world and also in the US, that's why we see so many news stories about it all the time. So I guess it's good that, it's making people more aware that dementia exists. However, you really need to double check some of these articles you read, because I've noticed, and I'm sure you have too, in the past few years that there's a lot of sensationalism that happens. And sensationalism is basically like writing an article just for the feeling of, or just to get, an emotional reaction from someone, right? And that's how a lot of news sources get a lot of clicks. And so I don't really read the news much anymore, because I don't like being on this like roller coaster of like, yay, this is great, and oh, that's terrible, and oh, in this case, like, why would Pfizer do that? I'm very enraged, but it's really important. And when I read this article by Washington Post, I brought it to the attention of like my pretty moderate scientist husband, right? Because he would have more of like an objective point of view of it. He's not as emotionally involved with someone with dementia like I am. And we looked back and actually looked at the study to see what the information was. And I saw this reinforced in another article I read, which I can link to the bottom here, by Being Patient, where they basically say, it wasn't necessarily responsible for Washington Post to share that information in that tone. And what I found in the study is that this drug Enbrel which they do use now for rheumatoid arthritis, it doesn't actually go into the brain tissue at all, right? So that's why they never even considered it, because it didn't even make it to the effectiveness where they would need to start doing clinical trials. They also they let someone, take the information to apply for a grant, just in case they wanted to start clinical trials for Alzheimer's, and it was decided that it wasn't effective enough to even start the trials, right? So I definitely know how you feel. I was pretty, like, I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty enraged when I read the article and said, why would Pfizer do that? And they're so corrupt and all of that stuff. But I think, it's important to remember that there's always three sides to every story. There's one person's point of view, the other person's point of view, and then what actually happened, right? And so I think for these types of articles, it's really important to go back and look at the study and see exactly what happened. Or if you don't want to do that, I recommend a website called beingpatient.com. They have a pretty objective point of view on these types of articles. So I think if you really do want to involve yourself in the research, which I've kind of learned that I don't really do that anymore, I more look at research trends versus what does one study show? You know what I mean? But if you are interested in that, I recommend, going to their website and following them on Facebook. It's called Being Patient, and I'll put a link down there below for you. But yeah, so the other thing I wanted to talk about is why I am not just waiting for a cure. So what I mean by that is, I think I was doing that in the beginning before I stepped up for my parents when my dad first was showing signs of dementia, but we didn't have the diagnosis yet. I kind of was sitting back and saying, well, they'll find a cure. I'm sure they will. And, and I'll keep track of what's going on with the research. And then once there's a medication that I think will help him, I'll jump in and offer it. Right. But what I found was that was very disempowering, right? I mean, I think dementia causes us to feel victimized because we feel, especially as long distance daughters, we feel so helpless and we can't do anything, And so sitting back and waiting for a news article that will speak to how we can, create a solution for our parents and create our happiness is very we're just giving our power all away, right? And so instead of doing that, I'm keeping track of kind of what's going on, research trends and everything, but I actually, became a lot more proactive, and I became, I was assertive in my job, in my career, and I kind of applied that in this aspect too, because here's the thing, there are things that you are in charge, you can make decisions about, right? There's a lot of uncertainty about dementia, but there are things that you can make certain. You can make certain that where your loved one with dementia, what memory care building they're moving into. You can make sure that your parents are working with a really great financial planner that you've met and you feel good about, right? There's a lot of things that we actually have control over that we don't realize. So I think instead of focusing on the uncertainty and trying to fix that, which honestly, I don't think we're going to find a cure for dementia at least in the next 20 years. That's my opinion. And I think it's a good perspective to have, because then it causes you to be more mindful every day. Because what is certain is that your loved one has dementia. What is certain is that there's research out there to teach you how to interact with your parent with dementia. There's information out there to, teach yourself, how do I get my parents to update their wills and the power of attorney, right? So I think it's much better if we focus on what do we have control over? What can I really be mindful about on a day-to-day basis, and really create joy for that, and create ease for me and my parents. So my HVAC just turned on, so it's probably why you can't hear me as well. But that's really what I wanted to share with you guys today. So I'd love to hear what you think about the Pfizer situation, and if you really do feel like they're hiding information, I'd love to hear that. Or how your parent is doing with any medication that they're on. So my dad is on Namenda and Aricept, and it actually was effective for him. So I'm curious to know if you found a medication that helps your parents' dementia symptoms, decrease. So that is it, and I would love it if you could subscribe to this channel. If you found this video helpful, you can click the button below that says subscribe, and I will see you guys later. Bye.